What if I told you that the biggest mistake you're making on the ice has nothing to do with your lure, your line, or the spot you chose? What if it's something so obvious yet so completely overlooked that it's been costing you fish for years? We're talking about your shadow. Yeah, I know what some of you are thinking, another old myth from Grandpa. But today we're going to break down whether that dark shape you cast on the ice is truly just a shadow, or if it's a giant predator warning sign that sends cautious fish scattering. Stick around, because the answer could fundamentally change how you approach your fishing hole ever again. And let me ask you this right now. Be honest in the comments. Have you ever seriously considered your shadow as a factor, or do you just walk right up to the hole without a second thought? For generations, ice anglers have been taught the basics of stealth. Don't stomp your feet. Don't slam your gear down. Keep the noise to a minimum. These are rules we all live by because we know sound travels incredibly well through water and ice. We've all accepted that noise spooks fish, but the conversation almost always stops there. We get so hyper-focused on sound that we forget fish have another incredibly powerful sense, their eyesight. We drill our holes, stand right over them, and silhouette ourselves against a bright sky, completely forgetting that the world beneath the ice isn't at a dark, black void. It's a world of light, contrast, and shadows. And in that world, any sudden change can mean the difference between life and death for a fish. First, let's get one thing straight. The world under the ice is not pitch black. Even through a foot of ice and a layer of snow, a surprising amount of ambient light penetrates the water. Think about it like being inside a tent on a bright day. You can't see the sun directly, but the entire space is illuminated. For fish, this creates a ceiling of bright, diffuse light. Anything that blocks that light, anything that creates a sudden, dark shape, stands out dramatically. It's not a subtle change. From a fish's perspective, it's like someone suddenly turning off a lamp in a bright room. That abrupt darkness is an immediate signal that something is different, something is happening up above, and that often translates to danger. Now let's talk about how a fish actually sees. A fish's eye is designed for its environment. Many predator species, like walleye and crappie, have eyes built to gather light in low-light conditions, making them incredibly sensitive to changes in brightness. Their eyes are also positioned to give them a wide-angle, upward view to spot threats from above. To a fish, a dark shape on the bright ceiling of ice is the classic signature of an overhead predator, like a loon, an osprey, or an eagle. It's a primal, hardwired trigger. Their brain doesn't rationalize, "Oh, that's just a fisherman." It screams, "Danger! Predator!" And the immediate reaction is to either freeze or flee. It's an instinct you can't overcome with the perfect jig. Let's bust a common myth right away. A lot of anglers think the ice is 12 inches thick, and there's 6 inches of snow on top. There's no way they can see my shadow through all that. And while it's true that snow and cloudy ice diffuse light, they don't eliminate it. The shadow becomes softer, less defined, but it's still a significant drop in light intensity. Think of it like looking through frosted glass. You can't make out the details of the person on the other side, but you can absolutely see their shape move past and block the light. That's what a fish sees, a large, moving blotch that momentarily darkens their world. It might not be a crisp silhouette, but it's more than enough to put a wary perch or walleye on high alert. The most critical situation where your shadow is absolutely a fish killer is on clear, black ice, especially in shallow water. Let's say you're sight fishing for panfish in 6 to 8 feet of water. On a sunny day, the light penetration is incredible. Your shadow will be a sharp, defined, terrifying shape moving across the bottom. You can literally watch the fish scatter as your shadow passes over them. In these conditions, your shadow isn't just a possibility of a threat. It is a direct and observable reason why the fish have vanished. It's the equivalent of a hawk's shadow passing over a field of mice. The effect is that dramatic and that immediate. If you fish on clear ice, ignoring your shadow is like yelling before you cast. So how does snow cover change the game? A few inches of fresh, fluffy snow is your best friend when it comes to stealth. Snow acts as a powerful diffuser. It scatters the sunlight in all directions, turning that hard, defined shadow into a much softer, less distinct area of slightly reduced light. The more snow, the better. A foot of snow on top of the ice can almost completely negate the effect of your shadow. However, don't get a false sense of security. Packed, wind-blown snow or slushy, refrozen snow doesn't diffuse light nearly as well. You still need to be mindful because even a subtle dimming of the light can be enough to make a school of cautious crappie uneasy and move off the spot. The absolute worst thing you can do is walk around your hole. A moving shadow is infinitely more threatening than a stationary one. Think about it from a survival standpoint. A stationary object could be anything, a log, a rock. But a moving object, especially one that moves overhead, is almost always a living creature and therefore a potential threat. Every step you take around your hole sends waves of moving shadows down into the water. If you're using a flasher and marking fish, watch what happens when you get up to stretch or grab a piece of gear. You'll often see those marks on the sonar drop to the bottom or disappear entirely. That's not a coincidence. You just announced your presence in the most alarming way possible. Okay, so moving is bad, but what about just a static shadow? Does just standing there, or sitting on a bucket, still have an effect? The answer is yes, absolutely. Your stationary shadow still creates a large dark zone that fish will often avoid. Imagine a crappie suspended 10 feet down. It's roaming around looking for food. It's not going to willingly swim from a bright, safe area into a large, dark, unsafe patch. You are effectively reducing the size of the strike zone. You might have fish 20 feet away that are active, but they will actively avoid the area directly under you. By casting a big shadow over your hole, you are telling the fish, "Don't come here." It's like putting up a velvet rope around your lure. Let's run a little thought experiment. Imagine we place an underwater camera on the bottom, pointing straight up at the bottom of the ice. Before you arrive, the camera sees a uniform, bright white or blue ceiling. Then a massive, dark shape appears out of nowhere as you walk up. The light is instantly cut. Then a drill punches through their ceiling, creating a violent, noisy vortex. From the fish's perspective, this is a full-on alien invasion. The combination of the terrifying shadow followed by the roar of the auger is a 1-2 punch that can shut down a spot before you even get a line in the water. Seeing it from their point of view makes it pretty clear why a stealthy approach is so crucial for success. And remember, it's not just the shadow of your body. Everything you bring with you casts a shadow. Your giant ice sled parked right next to the hole. The auger you lay down on the ice. Even your 5-gallon bucket. Each of these objects creates an additional dark spot that adds to the overall sense of danger. Think about your entire footprint on the ice, not just your physical one. The most successful anglers are the ones who minimize their entire presence. They drill their holes and then they move their gear a good distance away, leaving only what is absolutely necessary near the fishing area. It's a small detail, but it contributes to a much more natural and less threatening environment for the fish below. So which fish species are the most sensitive to this? Generally, the more pressure a fish species sees, the spookier it will be. Crappies are notoriously spooky and are very sensitive to overhead threats. They often suspend in the water column, making them prime candidates to see and react to shadows, perch and bluegill in clear, shallow water will also scatter in an instant. And don't forget about heavily pressured walleye. In many popular lakes, the walleye have seen it all. They've learned to associate shadows and noise with danger. While a big, aggressive northern pike in a remote lake might not care, that trophy walleye you've been hunting for days almost certainly does. The smarter the fish, the more you have to consider your shadow. Now let's shift gears and talk about deep water. Does your shadow really matter when you're fishing for lake trout in 80 or 100 feet of water? The short answer is much, much less. Light intensity decreases exponentially with water depth. By the time that shadow signal reaches the bottom in deep water, it is so faint and diffuse that it's practically non-existent. The fish down there are living in a world of near darkness anyway, relying more on their lateral line and other senses to find food and avoid danger. So if you're a deep water jigging enthusiast, you can relax a little. But for anyone fishing in that 0 to 40-foot range, which covers the majority of ice fishing situations, the shadow is a real and present factor. The angle of the sun also plays a huge role. Early in the morning and late in the afternoon, when the sun is low on the horizon, your shadow is long and stretched out. This can be a problem because it covers a massive area. However, the light is also less intense. The most dangerous time is often during midday, from about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., when the sun is high and bright. This creates the darkest, most defined, and most intense shadow directly below you. It's a paradox of ice fishing. The beautiful, sunny bluebird days that are comfortable for us are often the days when we are the most visible and threatening to the fish. Cloudy, overcast days are your best bet for natural camouflage. I remember a story an old-timer told me once. He was fishing a shallow, clear lake for big bluegills that were notoriously difficult to catch. He noticed that everyone would stand or sit on buckets and nobody was catching much. So he tried something different. He drilled his holes, then laid down flat on his stomach on a piece of foam, a good distance back from the hole, and used a long rod to jig. He kept his profile as low as humanly possible. He said the difference was night and day. He started catching giant gills while everyone around him got nothing. He wasn't using a magic lure, he was just the only one who had completely removed his shadow from the equation. That lesson always stuck with me. It's also important to remember the combined effect of shadow and sound. They often happen together. The crunch of your boots on the snow as you walk up creates sound and a moving shadow simultaneously. The thump of setting your gear down creates sound right where your shadow is largest. For a fish, these two signals happening at the same time confirm the presence of a threat. It's one thing to hear a noise, but it's another to hear a noise and see a dark shape appear at the exact same time. This multisensory alarm is far more potent than either signal alone. This is why a quiet, slow, and low-profile approach is the trifecta of ice fishing stealth. So, here's your first practical tip. Master your approach. Never just walk directly up to where you plan to fish. Instead, pay attention to the sun's position. If you can, approach your spot with the sun in your face. This will cast your shadow behind you, away from the area you intend to drill and fish. Walk slowly and deliberately. Don't shuffle your feet. Once you get to the spot, try to do all your drilling and hole clearing from the up-sun side. This simple habit of managing your shadow before you even start fishing can prevent you from spooking fish out of the area before your lure even hits the water. It's about thinking like a hunter, not just an angler. Practical tip number 2 is all about how you set up and fish. Once your hole is drilled, move your sled, auger, and other bulky gear at least 10 to 15 feet away, preferably on the side where they won't cast a shadow over your hole. When you're fishing, try to avoid standing up and moving around constantly. If you're sitting on a bucket, try to position it so your shadow is cast away from the hole. And when you do need to move, do it slowly. Every movement should be deliberate. Quick, jerky motions are far more likely to be noticed than slow, methodical ones. The goal is to blend into the environment, not to stand out. The ultimate solution to the shadow problem, of course, is using an ice fishing shelter. A pop-up, or flip-over shelter, is the great equalizer. Once you're inside and the doors are closed, you are completely invisible from below. The shelter creates one large, uniform shadow that doesn't move or change. Fish can quickly acclimate to this large, static shadow. It just becomes part of the overhead landscape. This allows you to stand, stretch, and move around without ever alerting the fish below. This is one of the main reasons why fishing inside a shelter is often so much more effective, especially on bright, sunny days. It's not just about comfort, it's a massive tactical advantage. But let's be fair, are there times when your shadow doesn't matter at all? Yes. We already mentioned very deep water. Another situation is extremely murky or stained water. If water visibility is only a foot or two, the fish simply can't see the surface well enough for your shadow to be a factor. They are relying almost exclusively on sound, vibration, and scent. Also, as we discussed, very heavy, deep snow cover can provide enough of a buffer to make your shadow a non-issue. So, you need to assess the conditions for the day. Is the water clear? Is the ice bare? Is the sun bright? If you answer yes to these questions, then you absolutely need to be thinking about your shadow. So, what's the final verdict? Is the idea that your shadow spooks fish a myth or a reality? The overwhelming evidence says it is absolutely a reality. It is not something that matters 100% of the time in all conditions. But under the right circumstances, clear water, shallow depths, and bright sun, your shadow can be the single biggest reason the fish have lockjaw. It's a critical variable that far too many anglers ignore. Treating it as a myth is a surefire way to miss out on fish that a stealthier angler will catch. It's one of those 1% details that separates good anglers from great ones. It's time to stop thinking only about what's under the ice and start paying attention to your impact on top of it. So let's wrap this up. We've talked about fish biology, light penetration, and different on-ice scenarios. The single biggest takeaway should be this: your shadow is not invisible to the fish. To them, it's a potential threat, plain and simple. The aha moment for many anglers is realizing that stealth isn't just about being quiet. It's about being visually quiet too. Understanding this can completely change your entire routine, from how you walk onto the lake to where you place your bucket. It adds a new layer of strategy to your fishing, turning you from someone who just drills a hole into a true hunter who uses the environment to their advantage. Thank you so much for watching and for taking the time to dive deep into this topic with us. If you learned something new today, do me a favor and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next video. And now, I want to hear from you. What's the one invisible mistake you think most ice anglers make? Let's get a conversation going in the comments below. Stay safe out there and fish smart.